everybody. You're watching Jewel B on So Booking Cool. I'm Janice McLean DeLoatch, author of Autobiography of an Entrepreneur and BlackShoppingNetworks.com.
So booking, so booking, so booking cool.
It's so motherfucking cool to listen to So Booking Cool.
Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. In part one of this episode, I chat with an award-winning entrepreneur of more than 2 decades. She is the creator of the show Entrepreneur Edge TV, in which notable guests have appeared, including Damon John and Etta James, as well as a plethora of entrepreneurs, business leaders, politicians, entertainers, sports, and civil rights figures. She is also the host of the hit weekly radio show, It's Janice, Minority Women Entrepreneurs, on WOLB 1010 Talk Radio. Her book is called The Autobiography of an Entrepreneur, and she is the founder of the recently launched Black Shopping Network. Stay tuned for part 1 of my conversation with Janice McLean DeLoatch, only on So Booking Cool.
So Janice, having been a businesswoman for more than 30 years, I'm sure that you've learned a lot. What would you say is your way of retaining the information that you learn?
Well, first, I wanted to say thank you, Jewel, for welcoming me to your show, So Booking Cool. So yay to Jewel B. Thank you for the interview. And so what I would say is, I think I'm still learning as I go along. Some things I do retain that help me to not repeat past mistakes or past obstacles. And, I've figured out a new way to go around them and do them a little bit differently. But some of those past experiences also remind me to not do the same things moving forward. The one key thing that I've retained throughout all this whole entire journey has been to be decent to people and to treat people the way you want people to treat you, and to support people as much as you can in your space. At the end of the day, whether it's business or personal, we should always be civil to people. And I think sometimes that's been a help to me, and sometimes it hasn't, because people tend to think that I'm soft because I'm civil, which is not true.
Are there any experiences in particular that made you realize how important support is?
I'm sorry, you said how important support is?
Yeah, supporting each other, and even how you treat people, the importance of how we treat each other.
Absolutely. There are a number of scenarios that come to my mind for that. I will say, when I first started to do the pantyhose vending machine, there was a lack of support for me. And I think it was because, for one, I was dealing with a lot of men. No, granted, I was talking about pantyhose. So I think that men really didn't know how to help me in terms of creating that business and really putting that business out there. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of women in key positions who could help me really move that pantyhose venture along. And it was a pantyhose vending machine. I have to tell you, as a woman, as a Black woman, that if I tell you that there's, often I find that we struggle to have people to believe in us and to believe what we're doing and to support it. And I don't know if that's sometimes from inner obstacles that people are dealing with. And then sometimes I think that people just don't know how to help you. I hope I'm answering your question. I'm trying to.
You are.
And really what I'm saying is, jealousy is a very real issue. it's also a crazy issue to me because, God has given everybody the opportunity to do anything that we want to do. You're going to have to work for it. It's work. But I've never been a jealous, envious, I don't want you to succeed kind of person. In fact, I'm totally the opposite. Everything that I've ever done has been to help other people succeed as well as myself. Hence, pantyhose vending machines, because I understood that women probably were having the same issue that I was having. I also did when I started out, one of the first, so let me just give you a little bit about my history, the background of some of my serial ventures that I've done. I started out doing fashion shows because I wanted to model, but I'm 5'4", and at the time I was 5'4", and a minority woman going through the John Casablanca modeling agency. And there was this little bulletin board, and I never forgot that. Even today, I still remember. There was this bulletin board in the hallway, and they would always post all of these jobs. And I remember looking at the jobs, and it would always say 5'8", blonde, male. I never fit into any of the criteria that was ever posted on that bulletin board. And I remember asking the director, as a matter of fact, I still even remember her name. I won't say it, but I remember asking her why there was never any opportunities for me or for people that look like me. And she would never answer it. And so my family owned a restaurant. My father worked at Bethlehem Steel and drove a taxi cab, and my mom ran the restaurant, and she used to work for Reed's. And so my family has always kind of pretty much been entrepreneurial. And so I always grew up seeing that. My job as a kid was to fill the potato chip machine and the soda machine. However, me and my niece spent most of our time eating more of the potato chips and drinking the soda than we did putting it in the box. But I remember seeing my family work very hard, and I've always been a hard worker because it's instilled in me. But one thing my father always taught me, he was like, you know what? If there isn't something that you see that fits what you want to do, fix it. And I never forgot that. And so I remember being at the modeling agency and never having the opportunity to do what I wanted to do or even have an opportunity. So I created the Visa Fashion Models. That was my first real business. And I created fashion shows. And I recruited models who looked a lot like me or who felt like I did. Because actually I had different nationalities and genders, and that, I've always been a really all-inclusive person, even back then. And some of them were poor white people, some of them were poor Hispanic girls, and some of them were poor Black people. And there were guys who wanted opportunities, and then at that time nobody wanted guys in their, well, they did, but it was different. So again, I was creating something that I didn't see reflected in the neighborhood in the area that I was in at the time. So we did the pantyhose, I did the modeling agency, and then I moved into doing fashion shows because I had this wonderful fashion group and all these beautiful people, and there was nothing for them to do. So I ended up doing event planning, created a program called City Search, which was an opportunity for the models to showcase everything that they had learned and we had learned together. Did that for a while, transitioned into pantyhose vending machines because often we would have holes in our pantyhose. And during the fashion shows, you can change and you can wear them and you get that. But although I was doing the fashion shows and the event planning, I still had a full-time job. And I remember one day I was on my way to an interview to change into another job, and I had a hole, not a run, but a hole in my nylons. It was so huge. I was you could see it from Seattle. And so I had to decide, do you go to the interview looking like this? Because I'm pretty professional, and my parents always were pretty good about making sure we went out the house looking decent. So I knew that I just couldn't go out the house looking any kind of way. But I had to decide, do you go to the interview late, or do you go and stop and get the pantyhose? And then I did. I stopped and got the pantyhose, but then I had to figure out where I was going to put them on. And this was in a building that I didn't know anything about, didn't know, any of the people there. And so I'm trying to figure out how to get these pantyhose on. So needless to say, I didn't have time to do that. I just ended up going to the job interview with the hole in my nylons. And so it was a man, and I don't think he really cared, but I think he really gave me the job because he felt like if she came looking like this, he probably really needs the money. So I ended up getting that job, but I remember just constantly thinking about, man, what if I had somewhere where I could have gone into the bathroom and put those pantyhose on and, went to my interview. I mean, I would have felt more prepared, but I still got the job anyway. So, but I did remember that idea. Then I created something called pantyhose vending machines. And so pantyhose vending machines did very well. As a matter of fact, I signed up churches. I had 2 office buildings, and the local NFL franchise, the Baltimore Ravens, was also one of my first clients. They had an administrative office building that was full of women. At the time, they had about 500 people in that building, and more than half of them were women. So, and it was a very lucrative partnership for me with them. I did very well there. And then I wanted to get more machines and try to expand it to airports and train stations. And so I would go to agencies like the SBA, Small Business Administration. I went to SCORE, the Service for Corporation of Retired Executives. And I had problems getting funding to get more machines made. I mean, everything up to this point I had bootstrapped out of my own pocket. I did have some people in my neighborhood who believed in my dream, who said, Janice, look, here's $500. One gave me $500, one gave me $250. And I really miss the old neighborhoods where people came together and really got behind their people and each other. I mean, right now, my neighbors, I couldn't even tell you what their names are. I have no idea. I see them, they wave, I wave, we keep going, and it's not because I don't want to connect with people. And I think it's part of what's going on in the world today. Everybody's just so about themselves, and we're all living in our little bubbles. And in part, I think it's the reason why we are all like missing being connected to people right now. COVID-19 is not great, as you know. But there are a lot of lessons in COVID-19, and I know I jump around a little bit. So let me get back to the NFL clients. It was very lucrative. And then I went to SCORE and the SBA and tried to get money, and I couldn't. And everywhere I went, they wouldn't give me any money. I didn't have good credit. I didn't have enough credit. I didn't have any assets. I didn't have a husband. I said, what? I don't have a husband. Oh, okay. Well, let me go out and get one of those so you guys can approve my loan. Anyway. Would you like me to pause here?
What is the husband stuff about?
Well, for some time, women were not allowed to get loans or start businesses or qualify for quite a number of things unless your husband co-signed on it. I hear you. I do. You're saying absolutely nothing, but I can hear it. My thoughts exactly. What? And so that was my first foray into understanding that the way financing and business for women is set up is totally skewed. But wait till I tell you about what happened with my TV show, Entrepreneur's Edge TV.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Okay. So the SBA and SCORE, and I went to Miss BIDFA at the time, the Minority Business Development Financing Authority. There were all these other little companies that were supposed to give you money and help you get your business started. And everywhere I went, that wasn't happening. And so I was very frustrated because I had people in interest in putting pantyhose vending machines in those businesses, but I didn't have the funding to continue to purchase the machines and have them made. So I started asking a lot of questions at SBA, and primarily because I wanted to know why I couldn't get any money. And they really didn't have the answers for me either. So strangely enough, at the time I had a husband, my ex-husband, And I was ranting and raving, and he's like, oh, I'm just so tired of listening to you fussing about this stuff. Let's just do a video, a show about it. And you can fuss at the camera and ask all the questions you want to ask, and then we'll put it on the air. So, and this was before YouTube and Shark Tank, and before everybody had a video camera, and cell phones had videos, and everybody had access to video. This was really bare bones, when there were very few programs on that talked about being an entrepreneur, small business, and financing. And I don't really know of any at the time that had Black women being the host of that show. So I like to think I was one of the first ones to really go out and create a TV program for entrepreneurs and small business owners, particularly minority women. That show was called Entrepreneur's Edge TV. And that program started in 2003. And so I did that show. Entrepreneur's Edge TV became my way of knocking on doors and asking questions. And a lot of time I got the answer because I had a video camera crew with me, and, people were either slam the door in my face or tell me no, or they would sit down and give me the answers that I was asking. And a lot of time they really weren't the answers I wanted to hear, but they would talk to me about them. I remember one of my first interviews was with a lady named Edie Frazier. And Edie Frazier introduced me to a guy named Hector Barreto, who was the head at the time of the Small Business Administration. So I started this show, Entrepreneur's Edge TV, and I was like, I'm going to go out here, I'm going to find these resources, I'm going to get these answers, and I'm going to help people. And I did. And for about 10 plus years, I did Entrepreneur's Edge TV, and I had I've had everybody from politicians to business leaders to sports people to entertainers, and well-known business leaders. I even have had my encounter with a former president. So I grew. People knew me. They knew the show. They understood what I was doing and why I was doing it. And then at the time, my pantyhose vending machines were also kind of around at that time too. And so actually, Entrepreneur Magazine, the magazine that is supposed to support entrepreneurs, I paused there. Let me tell you why. So they covered my story in Startups Magazine about my pantyhose vending machine. As a matter of fact, they did a book called How to Run a Vending Machine Company that was based off of my story. They used to have these booklets at the time. It was a book that would be an instruction booklet to tell people how to run their businesses. And part of that book that they sold for $79.99, some of that was my story included. I did not sign off for it. I did not give permission for it. And I did not receive 1 cent from those books that they sold. And then on top of that, Entrepreneur Magazine, the very same magazine right now, who says that they support entrepreneurs and small business owners, stole my business identity, Entrepreneur's Edge TV. And GoDaddy, the domain company that I had been paying for 10 plus years for my domain name, Entrepreneur's Edge TV, gave it to them. Now, Entrepreneur Magazine said to me, Janice, we'll give you $50,000 to buy out Entrepreneur's Edge TV. And I said, no, because after 10 years of creating something, I've spent that much in postage and travel and gas and hotels just trying to build Entrepreneur's Edge TV. No. Then they said, well, listen, you know what? We'll give you $30,000. I'm like, well, let me get this straight. You went from 50 to 30,000. And then they said, well, you know what? We're just going to give you $30,000 in advertising. Really? And the guy at the publisher at the time, he says, well, you know, you really should take this offer, because if you don't take it, we're going to go to court and we're going to sue you and we're going to win. I said, really? And how do you know that? He said, because the trademark laws are so old and they've been on the books for so long that we know the system of how it works. We know that you don't have money to afford litigation toward us and that you're going to lose. Guess what? They were right. Now, how can a company, first off, entrepreneur is a general use word. That's like saying money, real estate, water. You can't trade. Those are general use words. They should have never been granted a trademark from day one. But they knew their way around the system because it is skewed toward women and minorities and people with limited income. And they knew that. And they win every time because they're going to always challenge people's trademarks, which, by the way, I did have one. I'm sure they didn't think that was there. But when they checked, they found out, wow, she did her homework. I did. And so they challenged my trademark in court. I wasn't able to litigate it or defend it. And so I lost by default. And the judge, I felt, was very fair. I do feel that this particular judge wanted to help me and tried to give me a lot of opportunities to get a lawyer and defend myself. But I couldn't. I didn't have the money. I, at the time, was a divorced mother of 3 small children with very limited income. And so I lost my TV show name, Entrepreneur's Edge TV. I lost my domain name, Entrepreneur's Edge TV, and didn't stand a chance against these people because the trademark laws are so old and obsolete today. They are still the same. Now, I've been working on legislation and working with people to try to fix and close some of those loopholes, because you have people like Taylor Swift. I love Taylor Swift, but there are certain things that you should not be able to trademark, like LeBron James. I love LeBron James. I love the work that he's doing. I don't know him personally, but I mean, from afar, I support the work that he's doing. And in fact, he's one of the few millionaires in Black America that I see doing anything. So I'm very grateful to him for doing that. But Taco Tuesday it's a thing that's been around for years. You should not have the opportunity to trademark Taco Tuesday. That doesn't just belong to you. But if you have enough money and you have enough name and you have enough fame and you can withstand the fight in the court through litigation, the person with the most money at the end of the day wins. So smaller companies never have the opportunity to ever be up against larger corporations. We're going to lose every time because the laws on the books are wrong.
That was super compelling, you sharing that. You know, when that happened, can you just say how you were able to bounce back from having your business identity taken from you and not being able to really defend it the way, you know, you would have wanted to, you know, and deserved to?
Absolutely, Jewel. I will tell you right now, it brings tears to my eyes. I'm a crybaby because I'm real sensitive about stuff, but I'm also a fighter. So I shut down for a while. I was very frustrated. I was very hurt. I wanted to know where all the business leaders were. I wanted to know where all the Black leaders were. I wanted to know where all the women leaders were. I mean, because I was really reaching out to people and telling them my story. I was very vocal about it. And I was very frustrated. And frankly, I quit. I did. And anybody who's ever known me will tell you, if I quit, I really hit a wall, because I am the queen of get up and go. I'm like an Energizer bunny, you know. I might break for about 2 or 3 hours, you know, to sleep or whatever, 6 hours, but I'm right back up, and my mind is just always constantly thinking of ways to improve things, myself, my community, my family, my world. And I was stuck. And really, I would think, I don't get into all the depression stuff, but if I had to put a label on it, I would say I was in that box for that moment. And then one day, I got tired of feeling sorry for myself, and I was mad. Mad. I was like, how dare they do that to me? And so I rebranded Entrepreneur's Edge TV. As a matter of fact, I was told that I can't even use the word entrepreneur, which is funny, because if you go online right now, there's probably 100,000 people around the world using the word entrepreneur, but I don't get to use it. So I rebranded myself into It's Janice. And I went back to finding answers and resources for entrepreneurs and women business owners. I mean, really, for anybody who has an interest in understanding how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to expand a business, who the key players are in that business. But this time, my mission was different. My mission was to fix the trademark laws that are undermining poor businesses, women-owned businesses, and definitely minorities. And so I started writing a lot of letters to a lot of senators and delegates, and sometimes they're totally useless because if they're not in this space, they don't understand the importance of it. But if your Amazon goes down, you would understand why it's important to know what an e-commerce site is and why, unless you have $10,000 sitting in the bank to afford a platform like that, the everyday entrepreneur can't, which is wrong. All right, so Entrepreneur's Edge TV is now It's Janice. In addition to feeling sorry for myself, I started to write. I've been collectively writing a book for about 10 years. But during my downtime, I took all of those little notes and put them together in a book. I started talking about what it was like to be an entrepreneur on this journey. I started talking about my journey, my story. So I wrote a book called Autobiography of an Entrepreneur. And I talk about the pitfalls that I've had in my trials and tribulations of being a serial entrepreneur, from modeling to event planning to TV to now I'm writing this book and rebranding a TV show. I talk about the good things and the bad things. I talk about things that are true and fair that people need to support, but I also talk about the things that are wrong too and why we should fix them. So I wrote this book called Autobiography of an Entrepreneur. And again, I started on my journey of It's Janice TV. And some of my interviews have included Etta James, Damon John from Shark Tank. Well, initially, Damon John was the founder of FUBU, For Us By Us, which is interesting that he was one of my interviews on my show that actually was not even on a major network, and that I'm fast forwarding to launch something called the Black Shopping Networks, which I have launched. I launched on July 7th. And it's kind of interesting how, you know, he was in that space and he did it, and I'm in this space right now and I'm doing that too. A vehicle for Black people to be able to have their own businesses, to launch their own products. And I decided to not keep waiting for other shopping networks to give me permission and agree that what I was doing was valid and validate myself. So you remember I said earlier, my dad always told me, you know, instead of complaining about stuff, if something wasn't there that I wanted, to fix it and create it for myself. So It's Janice, the TV show, gave way to the book, but it also gave way to me understanding that I had this book and I kept trying to get my book on these platforms and get other people to hear my book. Now, it's about the autobiography of an entrepreneur. If I say to you right now, name one Black leader on television who's talking about business and entrepreneurship, just tell me one that comes to mind. You there?
Yeah, well, outside of Damon John, I mean, that.
Right. Now think about that. Who, I don't look on, you know, MSNBC or CNBC and see anybody Black on there talking about Black businesses, featuring Black businesses, Black anchors Now I'm not against other people. Let me be clear. I have a lot of people in different colors and genders and, I don't know, all these other different titles that they give people. And so I'm not against those people at all. But I am definitely adamant about understanding why the playing field isn't level. That's what it's always been about for me. So when I ask if there is a Black TV anchor, radio anchor, network that's highlighting Black businesses and entrepreneurs and women, no, they don't come to mind very easily because there are very few that I know of. And I've been doing this about 15 plus years now. So my TV show gave way to the book, Autobiography of an Entrepreneur. And when I was trying to get that book, I was trying to do the talk circuit and get on shows like yours, Jules, So Booking Cool. I didn't know about you. I want to thank Angelo Ellerby for telling me about you and connecting me with you. And I'm going to thank you for allowing me to be on here to talk to you about the things that we're talking about today and connecting with you, because I didn't know about you. And that's what happens. We don't know about each other. And that's one of the things that the Black Shopping Network will help us kind of connect those dots and connect to each other too around the world. You were going to ask a question?
Thank you for that. Yes, I'm very happy that Angelo has connected, Mr. Angelo has connected us as well. It's wonderful to be talking with you and having you on So Booking Cool. So I really appreciate that. And you sharing, parts of your journey. It's just incredibly inspiring. And the stuff that you have had to overcome. When you look at obstacles as opportunities to learn, to grow, and succeed, do you know when you first adopted that mentality?
Well, I think it was in my downtime. I mean, I know the obstacles have always been there, but I never felt like they were obstacles. When Entrepreneur magazine stole, because they did, my business identity and GoDaddy gave it to them, that was the first time for me that I really felt like it was an obstacle. And the book was therapeutic for me because I was writing about things that have happened to me through my journey, but I also was, for the first time, really able to see them and understand what they were and what I needed to fix. And so when I tried to get this book on networks and TV channels and people would not give me that opportunity, I said, well, I need to create my own platform so I can put my own stuff on here and sell my own books and sell my own pantyhose and bring all these other people that I know who've got great stuff like me together. And I'm tired of waiting for other people to validate us and give us permission to be on their networks and their shopping channels. I'm going to create my own. So I did. And that obstacle and that downtime gave fire to the BlackShoppingNetworks.com. That is a platform that will allow any entrepreneur around the country to get on here. And this is a vehicle that I do want to emphasize for minorities and women-owned businesses. I do. But I am not excluding other people from supporting what we do, because there are a lot of people who are not Black, who are not women, who do.